We're back with another episode of the Metal Blade podcast. I'm Vince, and we have Riley and Ryan joining us. Man, what's going on, dudes?
Oh, just hanging in there. Another week,
In quarantine.
Yeah, of course. I've been working on lots of music stuff this past couple weeks, which is always exciting. But beyond that, I've been playing lots of Final Fantasy XIV and watching lots of Homeland. So I feel like, really relating with all the conspiracy theory people right now after watching Homeland. I don't know if have you watched that series?
I haven't.
Oh, it's so good.
But the actor, I forget his name, but he played Frank Winters in Band of Brothers. And I didn't realize that he's a British actor, and his American accent is incredible.
I have to look this up now.
Yeah, right? Look it up right now. Jamie, pull that up.
Oh, Damian Lewis. Yeah. So, yeah, he's incredible. He's absolutely fantastic actor. He's only in the first few seasons of Homeland. Yeah, but the main character is Claire Danes, who was very famous in like the 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. I think she was in Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Anyway, and then Mandy Patinkin, who Inigo Montoya, You Killed My Father, Prepare to Die.
Right. Okay.
And seeing him, it's so funny because it's like the only frame of reference I have for him is Princess Bride, where he's obviously kind of like a goofier character, and then seeing him as this like deputy director of the CIA in Homeland is quite a stark contrast. But anyway, right. It's always one of those, everyone's out to get you, like the CIA has this crazy agenda and all these things are happening, and so I'm just like sitting there, playing a high fantasy MMO, watching a show about the CIA, just being like, what's that sound? It's been fantastic.
That's great. Ryan,
Yeah.
Are you alive?
I'm here, man.
All right. Riley, you have a lot of topics I know you wanted to get to for this episode. So where do you want to start, man?
Well, given that we are all music guys, music industry guys, I feel a good place to start would be this really weird concert industry that we're in. We've talked about it before on past episodes about the idea of drive-in concerts and socially distant concerts, and between then and now, we actually got to see what the first socially distanced concert looks like. It took place in Arkansas for the country western artist Travis McCready, which, if I've ever heard a country western artist name,
right.
Fucking Travis McCready plays the first socially distanced concert. Like, holy shit. Anyway, he played for just under 230 people in a 1,000 cap room.
Ugh.
And some fucking angel brought to earth took a bunch of pictures of the venue in professional quality, and it is horrible. It is like,
it sucks.
So it's depressing. It looks like a fucking post-apocalyptic war zone. Like half of the there's a picture of the men's bathroom that I saw and could not stop laughing because I'm sure you've been to like real shithole venues, right? Where every other urinal is just taped off or has a garbage bag over it or some shit.
Right.
So that's what it looked like. It had, except they were using like yellow, like do not cross, like police caution tape, like there'd been a fucking murder, and but like on every other toilet, and I was just pissing myself laughing. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was the actual floor separated? Did everybody have to like stand in their own little circle, or?
Well, so it was because it was 1,000 cap room. It was mostly seating.
Okay.
And the way
every
it
other
was,
seat or?
Well, it was every 2 rows, right? So imagine you're looking at it from the stage. You can see the front row, and there's people in it. And then the next 2 rows behind that are taped off, and then another row of people, and then the next 2 rows behind that, and so on and so forth. It looks like
there's still people sitting shoulder to shoulder then basically in the front row.
Well, so I don't know. I couldn't really determine that. It didn't look like it, but it might have been the case for families. You know, there was the venue was unabashedly selling masks.
Huh.
So there's several pictures of pictures of families wearing masks and taking pictures being like, oh, first concert since quarantine kind of thing. So I'm not sure how that worked exactly. It also looked like there were tables kind of sporadically placed.
That would make sense.
And I'm glad it's a step in the right direction, but God damn, it was bleak. It was.
I can't find Travis McCready on Spotify right now. I'm trying to look. I don't think he's on Spotify. Oddly, I know the name.
It sounds like an AI generated name or something.
All right.
It really does.
I grew up with country. My mom going to country shows with me was kind of my early concert experience. So there's a lot of names I do know. Like a friend of mine was listening to music a couple weeks back and just had it on some weird algorithmic shuffle. And I was like, hey, is that Martina McBride? And it was. I mean, there's something about my memory of 90s country just from having been exposed to it so much. But yeah, oddly, Travis McCready's not on Spotify. I was just trying to see how many followers he had to just kind of gauge the size of him as an artist. But yeah, I don't know, man. We got to do something for concerts at some point. But
yeah,
man, you don't want to do concerts and then people die.
No,
that's not the right move, obviously.
Yeah. So, it's like I said, obviously a step in the right direction, and at least some people are out there trying to make it work. I know that this concert initially was shut down before it even happened. It was originally set for early May, but the Arkansas governor issued like a cease and desist order. It's like a weird move that she did. So what at least I think it's a she, Asa, could be a guy. Anyway, it's a weird move that they did. The governor issued a cease and desist order and suspended the venue's liquor license to block them from the original date. So it's like the legislation doesn't quite allow the government to just be like, hey, no, you can't do this.
Right.
And we will shut you down if you try. So the governor did this really weird kind of, backhanded roundabout way of getting the show shut down. But eventually it got resolved and they put it on under pretty strict safety guidelines. I'm actually looking at the photos right now, and because I saw a headline that said featuring fan pods, and I had to see what that was.
Oh, God. Everyone in their own hamster wheel.
Yeah, right. And it's just Bubble Boy concerts. It's so ridiculous. And it's funny because, obviously not as big of a deal for country, but in our little slice of the industry, some articles have been flying around talking about how there's not going to be crowd surfing and moshing allowed at concerts when they do return back in full force.
Right.
And I mean, why even have shows at that point? Like telling a bunch of metalheads to not mosh or crowd surf or be socially distant.
It's not going to work.
Good luck. Yeah. Good luck with that. So.
Yeah, a lot of venues already don't allow moshing or crowd surfing or any of that, and it still happens. So
yeah,
enforcing anything like that seems pretty unrealistic.
Yeah, tons of venues have these signs that are like liability things, but no one really enforces it because how would you? I don't know. Every once in a while, at bigger shows, I've seen it get enforced. Security will kind of, slink in through the crowd and shine a flashlight on people who are starting to mosh and give them the
lamest shows ever. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
On top of that, restaurants and venues opening at a limited capacity might not be financially viable anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, 229 people in a 1,000 cap room.
What's the point? These venues they exist to where they already have razor thin margins.
Yep.
And opening for a show at 20% capacity isn't, unless the artists take significantly reduced fees and employees at the venue take reduced pay, it might not mathematically work out anyway. So unless you can 100% open, even in a limited capacity, might be worse financially for that venue than just staying closed.
Yep.
You'll just lose money faster.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's a really weird thing to wrap your brain around that. Yeah, the reason your beer is $10 is because that venue's trying to keep the power on. Because things like compliance with the state for liquor licenses and the legal hurdles that venues have to tackle are expensive. I mean, the As I Dying guys found that out when they opened up that venue in San Diego. It's no joke running a venue. It's super expensive, and a lot of people on the internet will just tell you you're doing it wrong. So it's really difficult.
Well, speaking of running venues, kind of as a side note from our little outline that we have here, there's this really cool initiative going on by NIVA, the National Independent Venue Association, called Save Our Stages, which is super cool. If you are in a band, or even if you aren't in a band and just a music lover listening to this, definitely check it out. You can support them via direct donation. They accept all major forms of credit card, PayPal, all that kind of stuff. But their mission statement is basically, NIVA's mission is to preserve and nurture the ecosystem of independent live music venues and promoters throughout the United States. So basically, they're just, so many venues are getting shut down during this time, like permanently closing their doors. And the fact that something like this is out there, I think, is super cool and definitely worth talking about, so that the landscape for touring bands and live music, when science catches up to the virus, is very important. So
how many real estate developers are out there licking their chops to shut down old music venues to put up another gastropub or a high-end condo?
Right.
That's a real threat.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, there's so many venues. I'm looking at the Southern California list of venues that are involved in this, and it's places that I've played many times, and places that I've attended even more than that. I mean, we have 1720 in LA, where, I know we've all been, Brick by Brick in San Diego, the Casbah in San Diego, Chain Reaction in Anaheim, tons and tons of places that are hosts to metal shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's very important. Rainbow Bar and Grill is on here. Pinup Presents, Music Box. Like, there's just, the list goes on and on. So if you are listening to this, please check out NIVA, National Independent Venue Association, Save Our Stages movement. Anyway.
No, it's super important, because outside of us and the people that are aware that a lot of these venues are important to the scene, both local and national, there are bands that exist because they got started trying to play venues like Chain Reaction.
Yeah.
And if you're if you've got a business that spans multiple continents and your job is to buy and develop real estate, do you give a shit about a local independent music scene? Fuck no.
No way.
No one's going to give a shit about this stuff except for us and the people in our world. So we have to kind of really do extra work to help keep it going, because no one gives a shit, to be perfectly fucking honest. Anyone in any position of power or any large businessman, a local venue, they'll laugh all the way to the bank while money falls out like a GTA 5 hacker.
Yeah.
Like, they just don't care, because music at a local level at a venue the size of Chain Reaction, it doesn't even register on their radar. But creatively, like, these creative spaces are fucking vital to our scene.
Yeah. Well, and not only are they creative spaces, but I think that those high-end, big air quote, big picture type of investors and type of, moguls of the music industry don't they're not quite in touch with the fact that those venues and those communities serve as bridges between, you know, a starting artist and a popular artist. So
yeah, I'm not even talking about music. I'm just talking about in general, like Chain Reaction's in a fucking strip mall. And if whomever owns that strip mall decides to sell to some maniac that just wants to demo it, it's gone. And there's nothing anybody can do about it.
That's true.
I mean, there was a diner near the Metal Blade office that's been in a bunch of TV shows called Corky's. It's a cool little local diner, and the landlord just decided they wanted to make more money and essentially raise rent to the point where Corky's couldn't afford it anymore and booted them. So a place that was in episodes of like Parks and Recreation is just gone because a landlord could make more money elsewhere.
That's rough, man.
Yeah, it's brutal. And music venues are absolutely in a position where they can become victim to that world that it's super cutthroat and insane, man. I don't know. It's not my world. I don't know a lot about real estate, but I do know that landlords can decide to make money, more money from another tenant or just sell the property, right? I mean, that's just relatively basic stuff.
And especially now when so many of these venues and these creative businesses are just unable to make money. I'm sure there's some landlords who are, out there being cool about it, hanging out in the minority, but tons of places have already closed their doors because they can't pay rent, and their landlords are not trying to let them, like, they want them out as soon as possible so that they can find the next, the next big money-making opportunity. So it's really unfortunate. But speaking of cuts to the industry, so Live Nation furloughed 20% of its staff recently as part of a $600 million plan to cut costs. That's insane. It's
brutal, but only 20%.
Yeah, and the CEO is, from what I've read, he is giving up his salary. So it's not like they're furloughing 20% of their staff, but the CEO is still collecting a huge, salary every month. He is also including himself in that temporary loss of pay, which obviously for him is going to be less impacting than it is for your everyday employee, but it's still a good gesture to make if you are going to furlough 20% of your staff. The whole conversation he had with, God, I can't remember who he had that conversation with, but he had a conversation with someone in like a live interview type of thing, and he said a lot of interesting things. He made a lot of really interesting points about surveys that they've made, talking to test groups of 10,000 people about whether or not this shutdown of the concert industry is affecting them, what they want, how their refunds have been getting handled, just the situation in general. It feels like he's not one of those kind of tone deaf CEOs who just like has a master's degree in business and got this position at the top of this company that he knows nothing about. It really seems like he's a super aware person of how his industry and how his business works. In fact, he started to say some stuff about reopening that I thought was really interesting that I'll read here real quick. So he says, so over the next 6 months, we'll be starting slow and small, focusing on the basics and testing regionally. But whether it's in Arkansas, I'm sure obviously in reference to that concert we were just talking about, or another state that is safe, secure, and politically fine to proceed in, we're going to dabble in fanless concerts with broadcasts and reduced capacity shows because we can make the math work. So it's interesting to see how the people kind of at the top of the food chain in the industry are, looking at how we're going to proceed. He says, so I think in the fall, you'll see more experimenting and more shows happening in a theater setting into some arenas. And then our goal is really to be on sale in the third and fourth quarters for 2021 at full scale. So It's kind of what we anticipated as far as it taking about 18 months for things to get back to normal. But it's good to know that there's still going to be some kind of creative solutions being enacted until then. So it's wild, man. It's a wild time.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, I'm sure most people already know, but can you kind of explain how big of a deal Live Nation actually is for anybody who's not aware?
I'll let Vince take the reins on that.
Yeah, I mean, Live Nation obviously is a pretty divisive company. They've got a lot of fees for tickets, and people rail on them on social media on a regular basis. And I certainly understand that, but Live Nation also is one of the biggest promotional partners for the music business in general. You know, Allegiant did a tour years ago in Live Nation rooms as an effort to help build underground metal acts in bigger rooms than they really should have been in, and partnered with us in a lot of marketing for that. So while Live Nation does charge fees on tickets that people get mad about, they also spend a hell of a lot of money to help promote. And I'm not saying every venue on earth should be Live Nation, just like, you know, I think there's a lot of value in independent venues, just like there is value in independent heavy metal radio shows on local rock stations. But there are good people that work at Live Nation that work their asses off to try to make concerts and tours work. And you don't work at a company like Live Nation unless you really care about music and what they're doing. So, you know, for them to only have to furlough 20% when a lot of companies have furloughed much more. I've heard some things rumbling underneath in the music industry where some touring and concert companies are furloughing 80% or more of staff right now, because obviously there's no income. So Live Nation probably has the luxury of a larger amount of capital hanging around to be able to weather this storm. And who knows what kind of government assistance they might have gotten as well. I don't know, because pretty much every company under the sun has applied for some sort of help during this time.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, Live Nation, when we get a tour itinerary for a tour, which is a PDF we get from a booking agent that gives us all the details for a tour, the venue, the promoter, the production contact, the set times, just all those little details. For most tours, 50 to 80% of those rooms are Live Nation.
Yeah.
And they're in touch with us on a really regular basis. I've been on calls with Live Nation about what to do to market tours. So as much as you might have a problem with Live Nation for charging some fees, at least take some comfort in knowing that they're doing a lot of work to try to get people excited about concerts, because that's their entire business. So it's actually really exciting to hear that they're working on some fan free events in rooms that are broadcast. It's really cool. I mean, Bands of Town has been on Twitch broadcasting some events. So a lot of companies like that are really able to pivot to the digital world. And I know there's some people out there that are afraid that concerts will go away for digital experiences. And I don't buy any of that.
No.
I don't think there's any substitute for the real thing. I think digital experiences will only augment and add to that and give people the choice. There's been this thing in the music business for a long damn time that if you broadcast something from a concert or post something online, it's going to make people not buy tickets. And I think that's old man yells at cloud thinking.
Yeah.
I think doing things online will add to it. You watch somebody play a game on Twitch, you're not thinking, well, I guess I don't need to play that game.
Yeah.
It's like, no, now I want to do. Yeah, it's backwards thinking. It's old school thinking that seeing a concert online is going to make you not want to go. Sure, there's going to be some people that don't care about going, but if they didn't care about going and watch the concert online and maybe helped like donate on Twitch or ended up buying a ticket, but all you're doing is reaching more people, not fewer. And I get really frustrated a lot of the time with the old school thinking out there, like, oh no, concerts are going to go away. What?
Yeah, no way. And it's just a time thing, you know. It's going to take time, just as every other industry is going to take time to reopen. Ours is just going to take a little longer because it's based around people gathering in groups.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a little bit of time. And as long as everybody understands that it's going to take a little bit of time, we can start to get creative and the audience can start to get more involved from afar. And, I just view it as a huge opportunity. And I am clearly not the only one, as we can move into this next talking point here, where major names in mainstream music, such as Travis Scott, Diplo, and Deadmau5, have been hosting concerts via Fortnite's new party mode, which is insane. Diplo had 10.6 million viewers on Fortnite while he was broadcasting what was ultimately like I can't even remember. It was maybe, oh God, let me look this up. It was a 17 minute concert. Like,
oh wow,
yeah. The first show, I have these numbers pulled up. So last week, Fortnite played host to multiple Travis Scott concerts, which my colleague Andrew Webster found to be surreal and spectacular. The first show had 12.3 million concurrent participants for a record Fortnite live event, topping last year's Marshmello concert that had 10.7. Okay, so I had my numbers a little mixed up. It wasn't Diplo, it was Travis Scott, but still 10.7 million attendees for Marshmello, 12.3 million concurrent participants for Travis Scott. Like, those are numbers that you could never recreate in a live setting. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you look at the world's highest attended concerts, and it's like Rock in Rio that one year that like Metallica did it, where it had like 1 point something million people there. And like, granted, that's nothing to shake a stick at, but that is literally 1/12, which when talking in millions of people is kind of a large gap.
It's insane.
And it's crazy that, anyone could possibly think that this kind of widespread digital access could ever be a bad thing. In our slice of the industry, that's going to be my new favorite thing to say on this podcast, by the way. In our little slice of the industry.
And Gary Whitta, he's a screenwriter and author. I'm on his Twitter profile right now. He's a screenwriter for Rogue One, The Book of Eli, Star Wars, Rebels, and The Walking Dead. He's been doing a show called Animal Talking, where he does interviews. It's a late night talk show format. Interviews inside Animal Crossing. And one of the episodes, he had a Danny Trejo, and another one, it was Elijah Wood. They might have all been on together. I can't remember. I've just been seeing highlights on Twitter. Animal Talking Season 1, Episode 10 is T-Pain and Chastity Vicencio. And it's celebrities going to his island in Animal Crossing and sitting down, and he built the TV studio in the game. And that's incredible. Yeah, why not do cool stuff like that, especially now that we have the time and we can't see each other. And things like these can continue post-quarantine and just add to what people can do face-to-face. I think it's super exciting and cool. Knotfest has been doing streams on their Facebook page. We helped them set up a stream of the King Diamond live in Philadelphia show. I know, Riley, you put it in our notes here about Metallica and Clutch and Neurosis and a lot of bands doing live streams. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, Metallica are one of the smartest bands ever. They record every show and sell it on their website. And I'm going to someday lose my mind and throttle a metal musician by their fucking throats, because so many metal bands will not let us do live shit because they're worried about mistakes. I bought the Metallica show I went to in college in Madison, Wisconsin in the mid-2000s. I bought it online on the Metallica website later that week, and Lars fucked up Dyer's Eve. He fucked it up. He lost the beat and had to jump back into the song. Of course,
surprise.
Well, you're talking about a guy who has spent 30 years playing hour and a half or longer sets, playing the fastest song in their catalog at the end of an hour and a half set. I'm not mad about him fucking that up, but I'll always have that memory now because I bought that show and I was there. And I don't think less of him for that. I think more of them for having the balls to actually fucking include that. So Yeah, Lars is one of my favorite drummers as a drummer. I don't give a fuck. I'll fight anybody physically over that. That guy taught me how to play proper stroke taps on a hi-hat with fucking groove, not mechanically like some sort of lame modern blast beat drummer that thinks everything has to be to the grid, blast beat perfect all the time. Sometimes drumming can be feel and fun. Play creative fills. There's something loose and cool about his drumming. On top of the fact that guy's never fucking pretended to be an incredible drummer. He's never gone in an interview and said, I'm the greatest in the world. He doesn't give a fuck. He helps, or he's like, people will say things about like Paul from Cannibal Corpse about not being the greatest drummer in the world, but Paul writes lyrics, arranges the songs. Like bands are more than the individual members, they're the sum of their parts, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And they're right musicians for right bands. So all this like bullshit online of people saying like they're not the best drummer ever. So what? Do you like listening to the songs or not?
Oftentimes
like,
the
fuck
best.
off.
Oftentimes, the best, most virtuosic musicians are the least fun to listen to.
Yngwie Malmsteen's never written a good fucking song.
No,
I'll say that.
He really hasn't. Oh my god.
I've never heard an Yngwie Malmsteen song and thought that was great.
Yeah. But he could play his ass
you know
off.
what I mean?
He's
like,
fucking amazing. But
who cares?
It's like, if the music can't stand on its own, it doesn't matter how you're playing it.
I'd rather listen to a video of me sweeping my own floors than listening to Yngwie Malmsteen sweep on a guitar. Because it's just more interesting. So yeah, that's a bit of a tangent. But the point is, bands like Metallica have this back catalog of live performances that they can now, and they've always been doing this, but make it a special event for people to get involved. Ryan, of course, you saw we did that Black Dahlia Boston show stream from their tour with Black Label Society, and the guys came in and chat. They chatted with fans during the stream. And it's been really fun to do things like that. And that's things I've been wanting to do anyway for a long time.
Right.
So I hope after this, it just continues to happen. Because there's like the online presence of fans screaming all the time at musicians is such a fucking toxic mess. It actually prevents us from doing fun things. Because several thousand people might enjoy a show, but if one fucking chode jumps in there and goes, man, well, the guitar player, blah, blah, blah. That guitar player is going to see that and just go like, well, I don't know. I don't know if we could put this out. It's like, I'm so exhausted with all that nonsense of just a couple losers ruining it for fucking everybody else.
Well,
Armored Saint did a fucking live from quarantine acoustic cover of an old song called Isolation. And it's just the guys at home recording with the equipment they have access to, a cool little stripped down version of a song. And John Bush is one of the better vocalists in metal history. He's fucking awesome. His voice live, if you're in the room with him while he's warming up, it'll hurt your ears. He's really good. He's not pitchy live. He hits notes. He's great. And there was one jerk on Facebook that was like, well, if the vocalist can't hit notes, I don't want to watch this. What the he sounds great. What are you talking about? It wasn't auto-tuned in the studio. So Ryan, I don't know how you feel about this shit, but there's this frustrating dichotomy between people like, well, it wasn't perfect, and then people going like, well, it's too perfect. It's this impossible, like, Little Red Riding Hood, the porridge is too hot. No, the porridge is too cold. No, I'm going to fucking smother you in this porridge. I'm going to suffocate your head. I'm going to shove your head in this porridge, and you're going to die. Like, is anyone else? Am I the only one this angry about this shit?
No, dude, I'm super pissed about this kind of shit. But the thing is that, I've said it before, and I will say it again. Never fucking take advice or never take criticism from someone that you wouldn't take advice from. Like, every time I see someone leaving shitty comments, whether it's on my work or other people's work, it's like, bro, like, what have you contributed to the collective consciousness of music lately? And if it's nothing beyond your shitty comments, then like, yeah, it's the same. It has the same effect as when I see a fly buzzing around in my house. I'm just like, oh God, you're fucking annoying. Like, but I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh my God, how could this fly invade my personal space and criticize my fucking house? Like, is this fly in here buzzing around me because it hates my furniture? Like, I don't give a fuck. Like,
yeah. And I think musicians have to take that attitude. because
really have to.
it actually affects our ability to do our job at times.
Yeah.
Because musicians do. It's the same reason we've had trouble getting people to Twitch stream. It's this toxic online just hate spiral that fans sometimes get on. And I say fans, but it's really a wildly small percentage of people.
Yeah.
But that wildly small percentage of people can have a louder voice because they're just the ones yelling the loudest.
Well, it's what people focus on. You know what I mean? Like, you can go on one of your videos and read 1,000 positive comments that are all like, wow, guys, this is great. Like, seriously amazing. Holy shit. And they all kind of blend together. And then you read one comment that's like, man, the mix on this is terrible. And it's like, oh my God, the mix on this is terrible. But it's like, you can't let that shit get under your skin. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to doing so. And again, it would be different if I released something with another one of my bands and then a Legion's engineer, Dave Otero, came and hit me up and was like, hey man, like, mix on that really doesn't sound good. Like, I would take that to heart because I respect Dave and I have, he's someone who I would take advice from. So if he were to come to me with criticism, I would then take it. But if some random dude who mixes from his bedroom is going to go on a YouTube comment and be like, man, the mix on this is awful, it's like, get fucked, man. Like, I don't care what you think.
Ryan, what do you think there should be any real holdbacks to live footage? Like, how bad can something be before you put it out there? Or do you think it's a better experience for fans to just kind of enjoy bits that are just really capturing a moment in time? I don't know. What are your thoughts on it? Because you played in bands at a high level for a long time.
I think generally all the bands that we work with are at a level of professionalism to where they might nitpick these tiny little nuances that they think are bad, but for a general listening audience, it's going to sound pretty much perfect. And I've always been really good at not reading comments, so I don't really have that worry about, oh my God, what are people going to say? So yeah, I generally think that I agree with you that you should just be a little more relaxed about it, let stuff slide. Imperfections are what make art good and not just like a computer could make this. And yeah, I think that more stuff out there is better. Like the Metallica example, like you were at that show, there was a mess up, they didn't care, they released it anyway, and now you were able to buy that and have something that you were there with. I think that's a great connection to the band. So.
Dude, like and look, this is going to be hyperbolic and might be a bad example, but the only thing live about Pantera's official Live 101 proof is the crowd noise.
It's all re-recorded.
A lot of records like that have a lot of flubs fixed.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with a live album that is released as an official audio product, because there's a different expectation. And I think what I'm really getting at is if you're going to stream concerts live online for fun, or like Metallica, they do all of them to capture moments of time. How much extra money do you think Metallica's made over the last 20 years by selling concerts on their own website?
So much.
As MP3s like, it's insane. And I feel like so many metal bands are leaving money and exposure on the table by being a little too precious about their performances.
I think the one example I could think of where it might not work would be a band like, say, like Dillinger Escape Plan or Every Time I Die, or someone who's like absolutely freaking out on stage, flying around, jumping into the crowd. And the song could very well fall apart if you're just listening to it, if you didn't have the visual part to see like, oh my God, he just threw his guitar.
Right.
But even then, wouldn't that be cool to have a recording of someone jumping off a cab or breaking something? Or I think it's still cool.
Even Every Time I Die, and I don't remember if we talked about this last time or not, but they streamed on the Hate 56 YouTube channel their Christmas show in Buffalo from 2019, just a couple weeks ago. And Keith Buckley is an amazing vocalist, but live, the high energy show that Every Time I Die puts on, his voice gets pretty pitchy.
Sure.
And I saw a comment, like the comments during the stream were overwhelmingly positive. And I saw one comment, I wanted to drive to his house and beat him to death. This guy was like, "Oh, too bad Keith's voice is all studio magic."
Yeah, see, I see the problem. You're reading the comments too much.
I know. Yeah. It's like, no, dude, it's not studio magic. It's just when you're in the studio, you're in a controlled environment where you're singing and can hear yourself. At a concert, you might be able to hear yourself with your in-ears and all that shit, but you're also putting on a show.
Yeah.
You're jumping around. It's the reason why pop acts that have dance numbers and the vocalist is dancing play to vocal tracks. Because you can't jump around and dance and get on a breath and still sing pitch perfect.
Right.
It's a near impossible task. And Every Time I Die isn't putting on a live show to recreate the studio performance.
Not at all.
They're putting on a live show to have fun. So you're right. I do read comments more than I should, but I'm also a person that seeks out being angry more than most. I'm sure.
It's cathartic, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like if I could just find something to get mad about for 45 minutes, like it kind of makes my day better. I don't know. It's weird.
I like to learn new things and just look at things from different perspectives. So when someone says something online that I feel like I can argue with effectively, I want to help them learn because I once maybe have thought that way or something. So part of my anger really, I feel like is productive. And maybe I'm just making excuses for my own personality flaws. But I kind of want to shake them like a British nanny on a baby. And no, that's not why this is. Relax.
Well, those are the same kind of people who think triggers are cheating. Like people who make statements like that don't actually know dick about music production.
Right.
And they're like, oh, auto-tune, you're not actually singing. And it's like, what? Have you ever been in a studio? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, auto-tune is on every modern album.
Literally everything you fucking listen to since the year 2000 has auto-tune on it. Sorry to break it to you.
Unless it's recorded with some specific purpose to not do that, and there are certainly bands that do. Auto-tune is going to get you that last 10% that you want. But the performance is still valid. It's because there.
Those people think that if you use auto-tune, you're going to sound like T-Pain. And it's like, that's not how it works. Like the amount of people that don't realize that he does vocoding and not auto-tune is
a different thing. Yeah.
It's a totally different thing. But people are like, oh, he's like an auto-tune guy. And people have this weird misconception that was somehow cultivated that if you're using auto-tune, you're going to sound like a robot. And that's just not how it works.
In any case, I'd argue that triggers for a drummer make it more difficult because a trigger doesn't lie.
Yeah, it does not give you any room to fuck up. Like there's no sonic overlap.
Yeah, if your double bass is off, a trigger is going to make you sound like you're popping popcorn. It's going to be bad.
Oh, it's real bad. It's real bad.
Yeah, if you're a drummer that plays with speed, plays with blast beats at a decently high level in a band, you should probably be using triggers on at least snare and bass. Just so you can play that fast, because the faster you play, the more impossible it is to hit hard enough for a regular mic to really pick up in any capacity. So that's really what it is. It's because metal drumming has become such an athletic endeavor.
Yeah, tell me about
really it.
Well,
but
So speaking of streaming and speaking of all these bands doing stream based stuff, our friends over at Metal Injection have announced a really cool thing called the Slay at Home Music and Art Festival, which is slated to be pretty fucking amazing. And I'm not just saying that because Allegiant is a part of it. I'm also not just saying that because I am doing vocals for Frank's project Night Soil on one of his songs. Shameless plugs. Anyway, the Metal Injection Slay at Home thing has tons of bands, members of bands, and visual artists, as well as a couple celebrity personalities from the metal scene, like Jose Mangan from Sirius XM, that are all going to be doing streaming events as part of this like 2-day live stream thing via YouTube. So fucking cool, man. Like, I cannot get over what a good idea this is and how well orchestrated it has been to get everybody on board and to get such a wide variety of musicians and artists. Are either of you guys up to speed with this whole thing?
Yeah, I actually just talked to Frank on the phone the other day about trying to make sure we submit whitelisting and copyright clearances to make sure the stream doesn't get shut down.
Yeah.
Because legally online with YouTube and Facebook, watermarking and fingerprinting, it's really digital fingerprinting with audio. is a really weird and complicated world. So I kind of gave Frank some advice and help on trying to make sure the stream doesn't get shut down. And it's not easy. I mean, Behemoth on the Knotfest page, one of their streams was shut down for, I think it was Messe Noir Live, that release. A good chunk of the way into it on Facebook. And on the Metal Blade side, through our distributor, we had cleared it, but Behemoth has multiple partners all over the world for releasing. I mean, they're not Metal Blade worldwide, and Nurgle has all these deals set up all over the world. So unless they went and cleared that with everybody, somebody's going to block it somewhere. And it's really complicated to set things up online right now. You have to make sure publishers and people that own master use submit those as whitelisted within their systems. It's crazy.
That is pretty insane.
So I'm and things can even be marked wrong, right? Like it could be a live performance on YouTube, and the people that own the master use might have a claim on that the YouTube CMS system generated automatically. And technically, if it's a live recording, the people that have the master use, which would be in our case like Metal Blade through our distributor, The Orchard, that's invalid because it's a new recording. They only own the actual album recording, right? And it would be the publisher that would technically have the claim on that live recording to monetize on behalf of the artist.
Right.
So and this is me talking to someone that dabbles in that world as needed. But unless you work in that world every day, you're kind of picking up information by osmosis and hoping you're mostly correct because it's really complicated.
Yeah. I mean, and it's crazy thinking about just thinking about that from the perspective of like, you know, this huge sudden shift to the online world and how publishers are dealing with that and how copyrights are being affected. It's that's definitely not something that I have thought about up until this point. So that's super interesting. I mean, you know, I've been doing live stream stuff with Allegiant here and there, and fortunately I don't think that, you know, we quite have the gravity to get our stuff shut down yet, but we also haven't done anything on YouTube.
That's not the point. It's not the size of the band, it's whether or not, so the Allegiant page should be totally whitelisted, will never get blocked,
right,
for streaming its own things. But unless we specifically instruct, and that's where if people don't come to us first and ask, things can get blocked. I all the time go to our distributor and remove claims on Facebook and YouTube for editorial partners like Metal Injection or individual artists like Alex Rudinger for his YouTube channel. I release our YouTube claims in those videos all the time because as he's a partner with the label insofar as he's recorded on albums, we're fine with him generating a couple shekels of revenue on YouTube on his own channel for videos that he's creating on records he's performed on or bands he's performed in. But we do that as kind of a courtesy. We don't have to. We could just leave those claims there, and then all that would do was he wouldn't be able to monetize it on his channel, and it would be monetized by our distributor and or the band's publisher on their behalf. So it's a wild world, man.
Yeah, and it's cool to see artists doing stuff like that, though. You know, even if there are a few hoops to jump through, you know, seeing artists branch out and do kind of, you know, different things, whether it's independent drum videos or totally different kind of media projects, which I guess kind of brings us to our next talking point of this new 6-part Netflix series that is being scored by Michael Ockerfeldt of Opeth and directed by Jonas Åkerlund, who, if you're not familiar with his name, you should be. He used to play drums for Bathory, I want to say from like 83 to 85. So he is like a first wave black metal guy. But after he stopped playing drums in black metal, he started directing music videos. And he really made his name in that industry when he directed the music video for Prodigy's Smack My Bitch Up, which, again, if you have not seen that video, what have you been doing with your life? It's like one of the most classic. It's like one of the most legendary music videos ever made. And that propelled him up into like the mainstream. And he's done videos for Metallica. He did that video for Madonna for Ray of Light, where she's it's like the time lapse footage behind her while she's just like dancing on a car, which for the time that it came out, which I want to say was like late 90s, 2000, was pretty sick. But he also, my favorite piece of Jonas Åkerlund trivia is he directed that video. I want to say it's called Telephone, Lady Gaga and Beyonce, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he directed that video, and the video shows one of them. I can't remember which one. I want to say it was Lady Gaga, like in jail, about to make a phone call, and she walks out wearing like a leather jacket that has like doom patches and like all kinds of like sick underground like death and black metal bands on it. And of course, the gatekeeping section of metalheads, unfortunate as they are, saw this video and was just like, fucking poser, like, what the fuck, like, was she borrowing her fucking boyfriend's jacket, like, blah, 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 blah. And Jonas Åkerlund came out and made a statement and was just like, that's my jacket from the 80s when I played drums for what's that band? Oh yeah, Bathory. Fuck off.
Got him.
Oh god, fucking such a pro move. Anyway,
that's great. I didn't realize that's who that was, but that's amazing. I mean, Smack My Bitch Up is a pretty incredible video. It was super controversial at the time.
Oh,
and
very.
The twist at the end just makes it work. But I never, I actually didn't watch Lords of Chaos.
Neither did I.
But if he's got a Netflix series scored by Michael Ackerfeld, I'm sold.
And starring Bill Skarsgård, who played Pennywise in It, but more importantly, was one of the main roles in Hemlock Grove, which, guilty pleasure, fucking vampire drama, borderline teen drama. I'm just gonna say it. It's like a slightly more grown up version of Twilight, but it's fantastic. And Bill Skarsgård is in that. He's an amazing actor. I want to say that like the whole Skarsgård family, they're like the Swedish Baldwins. Like,
right. Yeah.
Like there's a ton of Skarsgård actors and they're all incredible. But yeah, it's all about this Swedish gangster, Clark Olofsson, who is kind of like the European, John Gotti, Al Capone equivalent. He's just this very, very famous gangster. So that's going to be super cool. And I mean, very little has been announced on it, so it's not really a topic we can dive too deep into. But the fact that Michael Ackerfeld is now moving into film scoring is so exciting to me as a longtime and current Opeth fan. And a fan of like the other collaborative things he's done. When he did Storm Corrosion with Steven Wilson, I know a lot of people didn't really latch on to that album, but I thought it was fucking incredible from start to finish. So very excited to see him do some out of the box kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy from BT Bam scored an indie film a few years back, and it was a lot like his solo stuff, really chill for the most part. Master Boot Records scored that new game Virtuaverse that's out on Steam and GOG.com right now. There's definitely a good crop of metal musicians out there that are of the caliber of composers and have the tools to do that. And yeah, I mean, anytime a metal musician can branch out and get creative and make a couple extra dollars, I'm for 100%.
I know Eric W. Brown, the drummer for Necrogoblicon, and he also plays drums for Veil of Nath. He scored the video game The Messenger.
Oh yeah, we talked about that a couple episodes back.
Yeah,
that's right.
So he's phenomenal, and I think that studio is now working on another game that he is scoring that is also having a feature from the composer from Chrono Trigger, which is super sick because the Chrono Trigger soundtrack is absolutely legendary in the realm of classic, 16-bit kind of soundtrack. So yeah, it's really cool, man. It's definitely something that I am highly envious of. I would love to score a piece of art, whether it's film or video games or anything like that someday. So seeing my friends and colleagues and even my peers and people that I look up to kind of moving into that direction is very inspiring. Gives me hope. So
yeah,
super cool stuff.
Well, shit, man. What do you think? Should we jump into this conversation with Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about Ben before we bring him on here. Who is he and what does he do?
So Endseeker is one of the bands on Metal Blade, obviously from Germany. And Metal Blade has always had a really cool roster of bands globally, and there's often bands that are a little bit more known in Europe and the US and vice versa. And Endseeker is a really badass, like Entrails, Bloodbath style death metal band. I saw them at Summer Breeze last year, and they fucking crushed. And Ben, we ended up hiring at Metal Blade. He's a guitar player for Endseeker to help us create content, and he's created a lot of really cool shit. I work video shit. That's part of what I do as a trade. So I was skeptical, like, how good could this guy be, right? Now, he's fucking awesome. He uses Final Cut 10, which I don't know how, because I thought that program was garbage. But I'm really excited to actually talk to him about that and how he builds what he does with the tools he has. Because just like audio engineering, video production can be done a lot of different ways. And there's really no right or wrong way to do it. It's just whether or not the end result is good. So I'm kind of excited to learn a little bit about Final Cut 10 and how it works and what he's able to make with that. He's done a bunch of content with Endseeker that's coming out right now, studio tours. He put together a lot of really cool shit for the King Diamond and Merciful Fate reissues we're doing. So he's going to not only have the perspective of a German content creator and musician, but just the perspective of someone in Germany during the current quarantine. So this should actually be pretty neat.
That's awesome. Well, let's get on this without further ado.
Hey, we've got Ben Liepelt from Endseeker. Man, what's up?
Oh, well, I just came home from band rehearsal. So yeah, I'm a little bit exhausted, but everything's cool.
Yeah. Did I say your last name right? Liepelt?
Liepelt, yeah,
Liepelt.
That's correct.
Okay. I took German in high school, but it's, that was years ago.
Okay, cool.
And it's, it can be a tricky language for English speakers. But yeah, so we're doing this podcast again. And kind of right now is a weird time because we're able to talk to everybody about their kind of experiences with quarantine and what they've been doing. So what's your day-to-day routine been like while you can't really go out and do your normal shit?
Well, I mean, like over here in Germany, it's not that bad because we didn't have like a complete lockdown where we weren't allowed to go out or whatever. So we were always allowed to go out. We just weren't allowed to meet up with large groups of people and stuff. And now everything's getting back to business slowly. Well, you just have to wear masks and stuff and like keep a little social distance to other people, which isn't too difficult for me, honestly. But apart from that, like during the lockdown, I'm working in a home office for the last, 12 or 13 years. So not that much changed for me in my day-to-day life. But yeah, like having the kids at home all the time and my wife working in a home office too, that's more like the big impact that I had because that was disturbing me and my like routine of having the house for me alone, But that's the part. And for the band part, it changed a lot, because all our shows got canceled, our tours got canceled, and so we just took our time and wrote a new record. What probably any band on the planet did during that time.
Yeah, it's been cool for me working from home, and yeah, the same thing in LA is we weren't really ever totally locked down. It's just, you can go to the grocery store, whatever. It's just obviously no concerts, comedy shows, things like that. So it wasn't really, it wasn't full on like it was in some other places.
They basically the cultural life got shut down, as you said. No concerts, no theaters, no cinemas, no whatever. And that really sucks. I think it's terrible. I'm really missing that.
Yeah, it's something we all certainly miss. Some people definitely deal with it better than others. For the most part, I love it like it is now. I like being able to go out and do things. But we've talked about kind of this being a great reset and being able to tackle projects that you might not have been able to get to before. So, like, is there anything you've done that you want to discuss a little bit during this break that you might not have gotten to otherwise? Like anything specific?
Yeah, I mean, like, since there wasn't too much opportunities to do stuff in your free time, We worked a lot in the garden and in the house and stuff, and I had more time to spend with my kids and like took my daughter out for motorcycle turns and stuff like that. So that's basically like the positive part of it, just don't be distracted from your family life too much by other stuff. But yeah, it's not like the big thing that I had on my bucket list that I was able to do now, because that actually doesn't really exist. So yeah, I made a lot of music, and I really spent a lot of time like writing music and talk to the other guys in the band, and like we exchanged ideas and we moved them back and forth and worked out pretty cool songs. So there was a new way of approaching the songwriting. That's not the way that we used to work. So that was new, but it was exciting, and I think we're gonna keep it that way even after this whole Corona shit is gone. So yeah,
yeah, that's actually it's something we talked about a little bit before you jumped on. Is some things that are happening now in the digital sphere with bands and live stream events that I hope stick around, because they're actually good and add to what bands are already doing. Yeah. It's crazy, man. And I saw you guys at Summer Breeze last year. I think you were the first band to go on. I forget the stage name.
Yeah, it was the Vera Tool stage or whatever. Yeah.
Is that an actual German tool company?
I never heard of it before.
Okay, I was going to ask you, because there's a mythology in the mind of Americans, and Ryan and Riley, you can kind of jump in if you think this is weird, but that European festivals are just so much better and bigger than everything in the US. So when I got there as an American and I saw that the stage was sponsored by a tool company, a company that makes tools, I thought, well, it's a bigger deal over here. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a big thing over there. I mean, not to say there's no good festivals here. We have Psycho Las Vegas and Heavy Montreal in Canada, the occasional Ozfest, Knotfest kind of thing. Chicago Domination on like this more underground side of things, but there's definitely not going to be any like major sponsorships flying flags at any of those shows. So it's pretty crazy to see some of those places like Summer Breeze and Hellfest that get those like, brought to you by Craftsman kind of things. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Well, but that Summer Breeze was the first time that I've seen like a tool company sponsoring a stage too. So that was new to me also.
Okay. Yeah. So it was weird in general. Okay. And one of the things I really enjoyed about Summer Breeze was the backstage hang was cool. And that's something a lot of fans might not be able to experience or kind of get the vibe for. But look, I project a lot of my own inadequacies and self-loathing a lot. And when I travel the world to see bands for Metal Blade, when I intrude on the touring world as someone that works in an office, I definitely feel like an outsider. And Summer Breeze, I think, had a cool backstage of the bands and all the, quote, industry people kind of hung out in the same area, and it made it this cool vibe of camaraderie, and everyone's there for the same reason. So as a musician going to Summer Breeze and as someone who creates content, like, what do you get out of an experience like that?
I think, yeah, it's basically the same experience that you had, because I love the Summer Breeze for the enormous hospitality that they have. Like when it comes to that artist and VIP area, that's so cool and so cozy, and they really take good care of you, and you get the chance to meet everybody. It's like a big family meeting, although that's some kind of like overused cliche, but
right.
Yeah, but it really feels like that. And when it comes to this, Summer Breeze is definitely my favorite festival ever, because you just meet everybody there, and everybody's in a good mood, and normally the weather is pretty cool, and the area is like is made up with so much love for the detail and so much comfort. That's more that most of the other festivals have to offer. So, or at least from the festivals that I have visited. And yeah, as an artist, you just I don't know, you cannot ask for more. It's like playing Summer Breeze is the shit. I love it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I felt really welcome there. It was a,
Yeah.
I often feel the story I tell a lot of people is the first time I went to Hellfest in France, I was there to specifically film some sets from some bands, and we had the proper credentials, the proper passes. But even in the US, if you have the proper credentials and passes, you can still run into lots of issues. If there's a security guard that's having a bad day, it doesn't fucking matter what pass you have, it's over. And the first time I walked up the stage at Hellfest with camera gear, someone that was working at the stage from the festival started walking up towards me, and my thoughts were, okay, here we go. This is going to be a problem. I'm not going to be able to do my job. But they offered to help me with my equipment. And that was
cool.
someone working for Hellfest. And that was the same vibe at Summer Breeze, too, that people were there to help. And that's what I've really enjoyed about European festivals, the several that I've gone to, is how accommodating everyone was. And that's not something I've found very much in the US. And that, maybe I'm not totally accurate. Maybe there's some exceptions here and there, but I don't know, Riley and Ryan and Ben, you guys have a lot of experience playing festivals. Is that kind of your vibe?
I think the European festival scene, I've only played a few, Hellfest and 70,000 Tons of Metal being two of them, but both of those festivals were incredibly accommodating. Hellfest was super cool. The way it was set up, it was like, for a few hours before and after your performance, you had like a little trailer that was all well stocked with, waters and beers and snacks and, fucking air conditioning and shit. Because it's in the middle of July and is, aptly named Hellfest.
Right.
But then once you're done with that, there's like this similar kind of thing that you were talking about with Summer Breeze, where there's kind of this like lounge where all the industry people and all the bands are kind of hanging out together. And it's partitioned to a certain extent, certain higher ups and higher ticket names kind of have their own place to go. But for the most part, it's pretty well congregated. So, really good opportunity to just talk to people, meet people, have a drink with, someone that you look up to or someone that you can network with. So it's definitely really cool. Ozfest, when we played that in 2016, was an amazing time, but it was certainly not well congregated. It was like, each stage had its own little kind of backstage area, and then beyond that, as you moved higher and higher up the list, the partitioning of artists became more and more prevalent. So, you had your smaller stages, everybody was kind of hanging out together, and then you go to the next stage up, and there's trailers and security guarding the trailers, checking your passes, and then from there it goes up, and then everybody has their own trailer, and then from there it goes up to like the main stage guys who also kind of have their own trailers that are a little bit nicer. And then there's like this whole area that's just for Black Sabbath, and they're like 4 tour buses. So, and I get it why it's like that. If I was, in a legacy act like Black Sabbath that's been around since the 60s, I wouldn't want me walking up to me being like, "Oh, hey man, I love your work." Like,
Right, yeah. Well, and that's a product of how the San Bernardino venue is laid out. That's an outdoor shed where the actual stage area with seating has a separate backstage than the secondary stages that they set up out in the field. So yeah,
Right.
it definitely, I don't know. It's just always, Ben, it might be a really like over talked about category for you guys, but European festivals for Americans are a destination because there's a mythology around how much of a fun experience it really is. So as someone that finally got over there, the fests I've been to so far were Hellfest, Summer Breeze in Germany, and Metal Days in Slovenia. And they were all, every time I went to one of those, I thought, well, that was the best fest I've ever been to. So it kind of speaks to like the weird music community in Europe and how just open and fun it is. I never saw fights. It's just really fucking cool. So I'm sorry if this is just a Groundhog Day of interview conversations for you, but for us, there's a mythology around it. So I guess an interesting question for you might be: is there anything about touring in America for you that has some sort of weird mythos that you've always wanted to experience? Because I don't think you've been here yet, right?
No, I haven't toured in the US yet. But I heard a lot of stories like from friends who have been on tour in the US, and yeah, I heard stories about that things not really easy for opening or support acts and stuff, and like the general comfort on a tour is very low, and it's not like comparable to the hospitality that even the small venues in Europe give you, or in certain parts of Europe, to be fair. So that's what I heard. Like I heard stories about 5-week tour with like the opportunity to get showers. I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 times in the whole
Right.
like for the whole tour. So that sounds pretty scary to me, though. But I heard similar stories about touring the UK, where like a band's playing like a 3,000 capacity venue, sold out, and the catering was like a box from the supermarket, with like a pack of toast bread, and just whatever. Some sausage
Right.
and cheese, like, yeah, there you have it, now fuck off. So that's that was pretty weird. But I haven't experienced all this stuff by myself. That's just what like people told me that have been on tour. So for the parts in Europe that I've been touring, everything was always cool, and like everybody was taking good care of us and try to like feed us not the scariest shit, but like properly cooked meals and stuff. So I really cannot complain about our touring level. But yeah, of course I would like to go outside of Europe and tour and experience all that, even if it might be tougher than back home here in Germany. But but it's an experience, and I want to see it. I was on tour with a band as a tour manager in Asia, like in
Oh, wow.
December. Yeah, there was a German thrash metal band called Das Boot. They're from Bavaria, from Munich, and they're good friends. And they asked me to come with them on an Asia tour as a tour manager back in December 2018. And we traveled 5 countries in 10 days, playing, I don't know, 6 shows or whatever. And it was absolutely exhausting because like the routing was from hell, and we didn't sleep at all and whatever. But the hospitality over there was awesome. Really, we had great food all the time. Everybody was taking so much care of us, and I really felt super welcome there. And it was a great experience. I don't want to miss it for anything. Yeah, so that's the only outer European touring experience that I had. Not as a musician, but at least as crew, and it was great. So I don't know. And I mean, like, the US is big. I can imagine that it differs from part to part. There might be areas where it's better and worse.
Yeah, it definitely does. Death Rage toured the US. They had a very generous offer from Protest the Hero. And Death Rage are from Italy, and that's a difficult country to be from in Europe. There's far less opportunities for whatever reason for metal bands from Italy specifically. And when Protest the Hero gave them the offer, they gave them the choice of the West Coast part or the East Coast part. And they came to me asking, and I said, absolutely do the East Coast part. And it was a combination of the shows we're going to play in New York and 3 shows in Toronto. And New York is just a bigger city to play in than any other country in the US. And the other component was drive times. Drive times on the US are significantly shorter than trying to get from a Vancouver, Canada show to Seattle to San Francisco to Los Angeles. Bands have died touring the west coast of the US in the mountains in the winter So it's just a safer bet for a European band to play the East Coast of the US. Because you're right, yeah, it is giant and it's a whole different animal. And that's part of what I hope people get out of this podcast is a lifting of the veil a little bit into some of the reasoning behind decisions and moods from bands. Because one of the things that I think is interesting about European festivals and the hospitality they offer is bands will often play European festivals as a one-off show. And by that, I mean they've flown there and driven. So let's say, for example, a band flies from the US to play Hellfest. They're now jet lagged playing on rental gear in a rental car to go play Hellfest. And for a fan, it's a great experience for them. But for a human being that has to travel and perform a show, any amount of levels of comfort a festival can provide for someone that's now jet lagged and tired to be able to put on the best show possible is a plus. And that's what I think
Absolutely.
Europe in the festival scene is good at. And Ryan, you could probably speak to that a little bit, and the discomfort bands have to deal with for travel and why the little things really help make it that much more comfortable, right?
Absolutely. I mean, just to circle back to the whole accommodations thing in general, I feel like there's such a rich culture of festivals in Europe, and they've been going on for so long that they've spent a long time curating the fan experience, but also the artist experience. So like you're talking about, like the backstage at Pukkelpop or Grass Pop or Download or any of these festivals, Hellfest, even something like Brutal Assault, all the backstages are thought out really well. They're stocked really well. They make you feel really welcome. They really take care of you. The only thing that I've experienced in the States that was closed was Mayhem Fest. They had really badass stage production and catering and everything every day. But that stuff really helps. Like you're saying, like you might be showing up to a fest, excuse me, where you drove all night to get there, and you have to like try to take a nap before your set time or something. And where if someone's laid out a comfortable backstage for you and made you really feel at home, that can really make the difference between having a shitty show that night and having a great show. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Riley, to add what you said about Ozfest, and Ozfest means Not Fest, is they're the closest in the U.S. now to a European festival, and they've really tried to make it that. And every year it's gotten a little bit better, and they're kind of figuring it out. So yeah, I think at some point the U.S. Fest will get there, and Chicago Open Air and a few of the others are getting there. But still, there's something about European fests that just have that different. It goes down to the little things, right? Like at Metal Days, for example, the cups you had for alcohol were made out of potatoes and were biodegradable.
That's fucking awesome.
All the utensils were made out of wood or I think bamboo maybe or something. At Hellfest, your cups for alcohol were commemorative and were refilled. You didn't throw them away. And that's the difference between the US and Europe, is that every European festival I've been at, the grounds were relatively low on garbage. Whereas if you go to a US fest, there's fucking garbage everywhere.
Fucking everywhere.
There's this cultural kind of difference of figuring things out at that level that we just find really fascinating, Ben. So I don't know. You guys are doing it really well over there. Dude, Summer Breeze was the only festival where I've had the guy that runs the fest ask me if I needed anything, right? Like Jagger. Like, how fucking cool is that dude?
Oh, Jagger is the
Jagger.
best.
Yeah, Jagger. I say Jagger out of habit for the alcohol, but Jagger,
Yeah. I absolutely love this guy. I know him for, I don't know, a shit ton of years, and I really, truly love him from the bottom of my heart. He's such a great guy. But also Achim, like the boss of the festival, he's such a great dude. I mean, there are a shitload of great people working there, and that's also what makes this festival special to me. And another thing that I just came into my mind concerning the backstage areas on festivals is that the more distance they have to the stages, the better it is, because you need a place where it's a little more silent and where you can relax and you get away from the constant noise. And when you play like smaller festivals or whatever, or festivals that are not that well thought out, and your backstage area is right behind the stage or something, or next to the stage, and the fucking PA is blasting the whole time into your ear, and you are not able to talk to anyone without screaming into his ear, it's pretty annoying and exhausting, and you cannot relax, and you cannot like concentrate before your show. I don't know. You step out of the noise and have to go on stage and make noise. That's pretty stressful.
So because you helped me edit some stuff I shot at Metal Days, and you remember how noisy that was?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was it's a really nice building, but it's right in front of the second stage at Metal Days. So you're kind of stuck there, and it's loud as shit, and there's not a lot you can do about that other than hoping to film something or have a conversation during an artist changeover. And that kind of leads us to the other thing here is you've been creating a lot of content for Metal Blade now.
Yay!
Which is cool as fuck, man. So I work in the Adobe creative space between Premiere and After Effects, and I definitely don't consider myself a professional so much as someone that really dabbles and attempts. And you've been able to do some really cool shit in Final Cut 10. How the fuck is that even possible? I used Final Cut 10 for one project years ago, and I almost threw my computer through a window. So, like, what the fuck? What's Final Cut 10 even capable of right now? Because it seems way more capable than I knew.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was editing on the old Final Cut version. What is it? I don't know.
7.
7 was, Final Cut 7 before. And I was totally used to that. And that was pretty similar to like Avid or Premiere or all the other stuff. And then Apple brought out this Final Cut Pro X, and I got it, and I opened it, and I looked at it, and I thought, what the fuck is this shit? I hate it. Yeah. Everything's different and looks different, doesn't look like a professional program, whatever. And I didn't touch it for, 2 months or whatever, and continue working on Final Cut 7. And then I took 2 weeks off and really got into this program because I thought I have to find out what it's capable of. And I watched a shit ton of tutorials and whatever. And once I understood it and I figured out what really the functions are and the possibilities, it absolutely changed my workflow to the better. And I less and less used After Effects because I was able to do most of this stuff or create similar stuff with pretty cheap plugins for Final Cut X. And I don't know, it really increased my working tempo tremendously. It got me way faster, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, because there's stuff you've been able to do that I thought, I remember, I think I emailed you once or twice saying, hey, did you do this in After Effects?
Yeah, right.
Because it's things that are either in Premiere difficult or you just wouldn't do it in Premiere, right? Like,
yeah.
One specific story I have is in the US, and I think in a couple cities in Europe now, there's a place called YouTube Space. And if you have a large enough YouTube channel, you can go there to use it to shoot, but also to occasionally take free classes. So I went to YouTube Space LA years back, and I took 2 different classes. I took one on how to run a Steadicam rig, which is common for films, and that was absolutely fascinating. How to properly balance and set up a Steadicam rig. It's super difficult, and now I know why there are camera operators out there that just do that. That's all they do. And the other class I took was how to shoot and edit from RED cameras, because RED cameras have a specific workflow, right? Like their video is a raw video source, just like a raw image. So everything can be edited in post, from the color balance to the exposure. You're not shooting to a lossy codec, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like you're shooting to RAW, which is why the file sizes are absolutely gargantuan. Like I shot a Tommy Giles video, the guy, singer from BT Bam, on a RED camera in RAW, and the memory card is a 250 gigabyte solid state hard drive, and I filled it in 30 minutes of shooting.
It's ridiculous.
And I had to dump it and fill it 3 times for the video shoot. And part of that course I took it, and the reason why the story is relevant is at the course at YouTube Space years ago, they actually had to tell us that Final Cut 7 specifically does not have red capabilities, and Final Cut 10 didn't yet. And there was such a mass exodus in the professional editing world from Final Cut to Premiere because of the lack of Final Cut's ability to deal with raw red camera footage, that Premiere added all the shortcuts as an option from Final Cut 7 in Premiere. So like the professional video editing world completely abandoned Final Cut because they didn't have enough features. So that's what kind of made me fascinated in the fact that you're using Final Cut X or 10. I actually don't know which it technically is. That's why I want to bring it up, because I just think it's super interesting and why there's really no correct or wrong way to work in the creative world as long as what you're doing is good.
Absolutely. But yeah, I remember those issues back then. And I think like Apple made a few really big mistakes on that, and not taking care of the professional customers enough. But I think they worked it out later. And for me, it wasn't such a big deal because I didn't shoot on red cameras or whatever. So I worked with a Canon 5D Mark III for years, and now I'm working on a Panasonic GH5S.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I really love this camera. It also like shoots in a low vlog profile, whatever. So you have enormous possibilities in the post, and the look is great, and it makes great slow motions and all this stuff. You know, all the unboxing videos or whatever that I do from our stuff. I shoot with this camera on a gimbal and in slow motion with like 200 frames per second and stuff. And I really love that. Yeah. So, you know, when I switched to the Panasonic, like Final Cut had added all those missing features like long ago. So I didn't have trouble with that. So for me, there wasn't a reason to change the system. Plus, I think one of the big pluses for Final Cut is that you just once buy it, then you get like endless updates. You get really cheap plugins from third-party stuff. And like for Premiere or whatever, you have to pay monthly, right? You rent it or lease it or whatever, you know?
Yeah, Adobe has a system now where you pay a monthly subscription to the entire Creative Suite. And for me, that's pretty useful because I have everything from Adobe Illustrator to Dreamweaver, After Effects, Adobe Media Encoder, Adobe Audition, which I'm recording my audio to this right now. So, you know, you could be for or against the monthly subscription. And I think there's times where Adobe really fucks up and breaks a program with an update. But a couple months later, the fix is around the corner. So, yeah, you don't really own the software and have that license for that year of software forever. But it's also been easy for me to go back and unupgrade, or if you upgrade, you can choose not to overwrite your old version if you want to.
Okay, that's cool.
But yeah, it is a monthly subscription at this point, which for some people is a total turnoff. But there's also enough templates and tools for the Adobe Creative Suite to really make a case for that being the default position. But you brought up an interesting thing that I don't think Riley and Ryan know a lot about. You said the word vlog. And I've heard a lot of good things about Panasonic cameras. I've never used one myself. I had an old Canon T2i, which I think in Europe was a 550D or something. It was a different model in Europe, which is, at this point, it's a pretty shitty camera, but it can still do decent work. But I moved over to the Sony ecosystem specifically for why you brought up what you did. So can you explain why S-Log and those things are important for cameras, like the color space?
Yeah, because the image is totally flat. It has basically no contrast and no color saturation, which gives you more color steps for the post-production processing. So you can really dig much more deeper into the picture without losing texture in the highlights and in the shadows. And when you shoot it the other way, where like the image in the camera already looks pretty thick and sharp and whatever, all those information in the highlights and in the shadows is lost, and you cannot bring it back. And when you shoot it with like one of those cinema-esque profiles, you really get the chance to decide afterwards in which direction you would bring the image. And it gives you more opportunities and more freedom, but it also requires more skill on handling the stuff. So you really have to know what you do with it and what tools to use on it. And yeah, maybe it's like a few more touches, but the result at the end is so much better, I think.
That's why. So Riley, when we shot the Extremophiles B video at YouTube Space, and Ryan, you were there. On my little Sony, I shot an S-Log 3. So anyone that's listening to this, if you're using a camera, you get a display called a histogram. And from left to right, it's a graphical display of the color information that the camera is capturing. So what S-Log 3 and some of the other color profiles do on cameras like Sony's, I mean, look, Canon, Sony, Panasonic, they all have mirrorless, really awesome, badass cameras right now that can shoot in these capabilities. But I'll give you an example where it's a problem in a second. So for Extremophiles B, remember how we shot that in that dark room with like super contrasty lights?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, and you guys stared at those lights, and it sucked for everybody.
Yeah.
I shot an S-Log 3, so in post I could remove the information we didn't want, but keep the information on you guys that we did. And if you're shooting with a shittier camera, or even for instance a camera phone, that information is lost no matter what. It's super contrasty because it wants to look good on social media as is. So when we shot, Ryan, you were down with us at the Brick by Brick show for Rivers of Nile.
Mm-hmm.
And we shot that show, and that show is finally done editing, and we're working on the audio for that one right now. I really wanted all the cameras, Ben, to have as close of a look as possible, but unfortunately that show was shot on 2 Sonys. 3 Sonys and 2 Nikons. And the Nikons looked beautiful, but they did not have an S-Log 3 option.
Yep.
So
Gotcha.
it became a giant challenge for me in post to try to match those. And when you have a camera that's shooting really flat versus cameras that now have color information, because on the histogram, Riley and Ryan, when you're looking at it, on the left side is dark, on the right side is bright. If you try to set your camera up to look nice with one of those cameras that doesn't have that, you probably have clipping. It's just like audio, but it's now visual clipping.
Which is like the zebra stripes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you have darks that are clipping, that is now information that is lost forever that cannot be color corrected back in. So the challenge for Rivers for me was to try to create a look in post that dealt with cameras that had a lot of flexibility with a few cameras that didn't.
It's a pain in the ass.
It is an unbelievable, because especially with a live show where the lights change, you can't just give it a look across the entirety of the footage. You're almost then stuck with going shot by shot, trying to create a consistent look over time, and ultimately becomes a balancing act of it looks good enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's always a compromise. I mean, it starts like at the point where you use different camera models, you know, like Sony just has a different image in general as Nikon or Canon or Panasonic. They differ in the greens and in the reds, and even like matching these parts of the image is fucking terrible. I hate it. And I had this on so many live shows that I shot. Yeah.
I feel like you have to be a certain type of like secret serial killer to be able to fucking shoot live shows. That shit. I don't do much in the world of video, but what I do, I'm so particular about lighting and about staging and about just everything that I do to try to picture myself in a scenario where I can not only not control what the lights are doing, but also can't control what my subject is doing. And I'm just kind of there fucking shooting at random, just trying to eventually get something that's good enough. I would like I said, you people must be fucking serial killers. Like you're the same type of people that have the patience to like sit in a tree and cut the palms of your hands while you're watching someone through a window for 6 hours. Like I just fucking, there's no way, man. Like,
yeah. Well, and look, it's just, you got to learn where to take shortcuts, right? Like you can't, we're not operating at a cinema. Like I'm not editing this stuff for J.J. Abrams. I'm editing this for YouTube for metal fans. So we can certainly cut corners and work in a world where good enough is good enough, because this isn't going to be displayed at a cinema, so you're not going to notice those things.
Right.
You have to adjust your expectations, or your standards to what is possible in that environment that we work in, and with the budgets that we work in. When you want to shoot a multi-camera live show and you don't have the budget to rent, like, I don't know, 6, 8, or 10 of the same cameras, but you just collect them from anywhere. That's it, and you just have to make the best out of it and like look what you can do in the post to make it as good as possible. But it's not a Hollywood production, so whatever. It ends up on YouTube and it's compressed to shit anyway. So
So Ben, I don't know if you ever saw the BT Bam DVD we shot years ago.
Nope.
It was shot in San Diego, and I had a 2-week notice to put the shoot together. And I went to borrowlenses.com, which is a website here in the US where you can borrow camera gear and lenses for pretty reasonable prices. And I put together a video package that I knew we could use to shoot the DVD plus what I already had. So the master camera was a Sony FS700 or FS7, I can't remember. They're pretty similar.
Yeah.
To act as the master camera, because the other limitation is most handheld small cameras have a 15 to 20 minute record limit before you have to stop and start again. Yeah. And I already knew that BT Bam were shooting parts of the show with GoPros. And GoPros in low light are fucking dog shit. Yeah. The new ones are probably better. I've heard the new, like the generations that came out in the last year or two are much better. But I think at the time it was GoPro Hero 3s or something.
Oof.
So I knew that no matter what we did, it was going to be challenging to match the GoPros. And a guy that the band works with did all the editing and color grading. And I think he actually did a pretty interesting job getting all the cameras to work together, because there were a couple different cameras. And the shooters that I had for that show, one of them was Stephanie Cabral, and she's one of the most notable photographers out of LA. She's been shooting photos since I think at least the early 90s. She's been shooting photos so long that when we did the Dimebag Darrell Dime Vision 2 release with a photo book, the photo book is this cool vinyl size, page turning, cool look at a lot of cool Dimebag shit. We got photos from Stephanie Cabral that she shot on film in the 90s. So she shoots on Nikon exclusively. She works with Nikon. So I don't want to go to a shoot like that and give someone like her a new camera to learn that day.
Yeah.
I would rather have her shoot on her Nikon that she knows like the back of her hand.
Absolutely.
Even if it's going to be a pain in the ass in post to work with, right?
Yeah.
Because they all have different menus and the lenses work just a little bit differently. So again, it's kind of balancing.
Sometimes the lenses work significantly different when like the focus or the zoom ring is like working in the opposite direction.
Right, yeah.
I've experienced that. I think on Nikon it's different than on Canon or whatever. Yeah. So it's not that easy to switch it. And in a live situation where you're just working like as a robot, you just have to know your shit. And when you always turn into the wrong direction in the first place, it fucking sucks.
Yeah. It's really about balancing a lot of those different things. It's a wild world, and it's been really fun having being in the position I'm in, where I have the ability to kind of pick up these things on the fly. And thankfully it's relatively simple to look up blogs and learn from people that know a hell of a lot more than you do, and teach yourself these things. Because I got to imagine you didn't go to school for any of this, or did you?
No.
You didn't? Yeah.
No.
So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's similar to making music, like doing this video stuff, because it's a creative thing and it's art. And when you break it down, there are no rules. I mean, when you shoot a concert with like 5 different cameras, so every angle looks different. So what? I mean, you can also do it on purpose. You know, I shot concerts where the GoPro looked so terrible that I didn't have any chance but to make it black and white,
right,
to fit in there, you know. So, and it doesn't matter, you know. Just try to make it look like as if you wanted it to be that way, and then it's fine, and then it's cool.
Right. If you just say that was the artistic decision, it becomes cool.
Right.
For the Rivers show, Stephanie brought a GoPro, and I really didn't want to use it because Brick by Brick is a traditionally pretty dark venue, and we ended up putting it above the drums on the backdrop, so it's looking straight down on the drums and the backs of the rest of the guys. And turns out, as I was editing that show, I ended up really happy to have that camera angle as a flavor to cut to. And yeah, you're right. I think most people don't really care that it's a different color space. Because for example, you could bring GoPro footage and Sony footage into Premiere and apply the same color correction, and they look totally different. Because just the image sensors and the color spaces it's captured in, they're just not the same.
Right.
But again, who fucking really cares? As long as the footage itself looks kind of neat, it doesn't really matter.
Absolutely. There you go. That's it.
Yeah. So I know you've just been creating a ton of footage for King Diamonds and Merciful Fate, which is really cool.
Thanks.
But I wanted to ask you a little bit about Endseeker and what it was like with those guys, because I shot the last studio documentary they did in Finland, and I actually am really unhappy with how the colors came out on that. I look back on that now and think, man, I really could have done such a better job with that. But I also had the issue of I was shooting studio footage for a week with a band that wasn't speaking English while they were recording. And I got to end up learning that when they were done with a take, they would say, Huva, Kitos, which is good, thank you, in Finnish. So that would be my cue to kind of ask them, okay, so what did you just do? So what was your experience like with those dudes?
It was great. I mean, we had a lot of fun. We just were there for 2 days, and we flew in from Stockholm, where we shot with Sorcerer and Leak before, and then flew over to Helsinki and spent 2 days with Endseeker. And it was freezing cold. I think it was like first week of February or whatever. And they were for the instrumental part, they were done for the most part, I think, and they were recording vocals. And so like the rest of the band had enough time to do interviews with us. And the studio was pretty big, so we had enough space to set up a little interview set. But yeah, it was a little bit compromising because we flew in there, so we had limited gear with us, and I had to like bring 2 of the lights in my suitcase and stuff. That was all crazy, and we don't have like a proper microphone boom, which Bart could handle, because we just took a light stand, you know, and taped the fucking microphone up there or whatever. And, you know, it was pretty rough production. Yeah, no,
I totally feel you there. I'm always I've had an instance where I've been laying in bed and had my girlfriend say, "What are you thinking about?" And what am I supposed to say? I'm thinking about how to Tetris my camera gear inside my Pelican case for my next international flight so that I don't have to check a bag. Is that an answer they really want to hear? But that's a real fucking thing.
The truth can hurt. I know, yeah.
But no, you're totally right. I think one of the lights we used in Helsinki at the studio was just a work light, a shop light, to light up Sammy for an interview part. And the mic I usually use is a Rode mic on the camera. And I would like to do something different at some point to get better audio, because that mic can be wildly variable based on the room you're in.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's going to be echoey and really bad. It just depends.
Right. Yeah. I use this proper boom mic, but it's also from Rode. It's the I forgot what it's called, but it makes a really good job. And I teach Bart how to handle the boom and stuff. So he is a good he's a good camera assistant by now. And,
Awesome.
yeah. So he's not only just standing around and looking like important, but he does a pretty good audio job. And so I think that the audio is a pretty important part of an interview, and the better the audio, it just makes it feel more high end, like more better quality. So but the guys were super sweet to us, and we went out in a bar on the first evening, and we got pretty drunk though. And one of them was like sleeping on the couch on the next day in the studio for the most part of the day, so he was a little hungover. But
I'm guessing that was Mahi.
I'm not. What happens in the studio stays in the studio. So.
Hey, fair enough.
Yeah, but Pete took us out for a sightseeing thing. I think it's, it's already edited and stuff. So he showed us around in Helsinki and showed us some cool spots and record stores and their old rehearsal place and stuff. And that was really cool. And it's already edited, but I think it's not out yet. It's not released. I don't know if it's out by the time that this podcast comes out. But
yeah, just might be.
That was great fun. We did a similar thing with Leak in Stockholm, and I think that's cool. When like guys from bands show you their hometown and their corners where they hang out and stuff, or the places that you probably not see when you just go there for sightseeing as a tourist and stuff. So that's that was fun. That gives you more. It's like a little personal quality time with the artist that you can bring home to the viewers. So like when you have the studio report, you see them in the professional environment and doing their work. But when you do the sightseeing, it's like, you get a glimpse of the private person. And I think that's pretty interesting.
That was one of my favorite things about being in the studio with Endseeker was seeing just how good of musicians they are. Yeah. And the end of the half an hour long studio video I put out there a couple of years back is them recording the outro of the album in a room together on folk instruments with no click track, all of them as a group.
Cool.
And that's something I really wanted to put out there just to show that, yeah, these guys are funny and have wacky songs here and there, but they're serious and they're really stellar musicians.
They are, absolutely. They know their shit.
Yeah, they really do. And you wouldn't, with how silly they are, you kind of forget that sometimes, that they're just that professional when it comes to actually getting the work done.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
it's fun. I really like hanging out with musicians in the studio. I like the atmosphere in studios and like the big clean rooms and big consoles and stuff, and everything looks expensive and important, right. And you have to know a shitload of stuff to operate this crap. But I love it, and I love the smell of a studio. I could spend all day in a studio. It's great.
Yeah, they fed me a decent amount of salmiakki when I was there.
What the hell is that?
What is that? It sounds dangerous.
I have to Google this. So, because I never really had it. Yeah, it's salty licorice booze.
Oh God, that shit!
Good God,
I loved it.
Oh my God!
For me, it was like if Jaeger tasted good.
Someone tricked me into eating some of that fucking garbage on a tour bus in Europe one time.
Well, no, this isn't the candy. This is liquor made from the candy.
Oh, you said liquor. Okay, I thought you said the salt licorice.
Yeah,
just the salt licorice.
I love it. It was one of my favorite things I've had, and it's cool seeing other parts of the world again as Americans, because we're so insulated. America is essentially a fortress with two of the biggest moats in the history of military conquest, right? Like, we're stuck here. Americans really have to make an effort to experience other culture. So when idiots like me get to go to Europe and it's like, oh, this is a liquor that we don't have. I kind of have the naivety to enjoy it without any preconceptions for what it is. But yeah, Salmiakki Koskenkorva is a premixed liqueur popular in Finland. And I'm going to the Wikipedia here. Canonically, Salmiakki Kosa consists of Koskenkorva Vina vodka with Salmiakki extract being dissolved into it. And that's what I remember. Sammy actually gave me a mixture of this vodka where they put the licorice candy or something else into it and just like let it dissolve. It was awesome. So
Sounds
I
toxic.
don't know. I travel the world and get drunk.
I could see that being good as a liquor.
Yeah.
But God, the fucking candy that it is based off of is
Right.
god awful. It's like, because okay, so when you pick something up that looks like it's gummy and covered in like a white powder, you assume that it's probably going to be sour, right? Just based off of eating candy as an American. It's like I see like a Sour Patch Kid kind of thing. It's like, oh, it's a little gummy. It looks like it's been dipped in some fucking sour shit. And then you bite into it, and not only is it salty, but it's also flavored like fucking black licorice. And oh my God, I was real upset about that experience. That shit was terrible.
There's something to me very magical about the cultural exchange of alcohol that isn't replicated on any other level. Like the time I've spent with Germans in German beer gardens is often more productive and interesting than in an office meeting, right?
The only time I've ever seen an entire tour package be like not only puking their brains out, but stumbling just complete messes was after a show in Poland where everyone but me basically took part in a cultural alcohol exchange with this shit called a spiritus alcohol. Let me see.
Oh God,
it's some
Does that sound familiar, Ben?
ridiculous.
it sounds like very high voltage shit.
Yeah,
Like grappa or something?
spiritus alcohol content. Let's see, 95%.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's
This is
basically
toxic.
What?
it's basically isopropyl. Like
Yeah. It's like Polish Everclear.
yeah.
You can put it in your car and run it. You know.
Right.
Yeah, spiritus or rectified spirit, a Polish vodka containing 95% alcohol. And they were taking that like it was normal shots, like it was regular, alcohol for human consumption. And yeah, they
Dude,
all
this
learned
is
very
possibly
quickly.
lethal. This is
Right.
this is no fun at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey Ben, just so you know that Americans aren't complete wusses when it comes to booze. There are states in the U.S. where you can buy a corn. It's a grain alcohol actually called Everclear, and it's 90 or 95% alcohol. And there's a warning on the bottle that says, "Warning: Do not drink straight. May cause blindness."
Yeah.
And we actually used it in college to make a drink called apple pie with apple cider, apple juice, and cinnamon sticks. And it tastes like you were drinking an apple pie. But the amount of Everclear versus the sheer amount of other stuff in it made it a much more lower alcohol content. But it also tasted so good that you could get really messed up really quickly. Again, this is college. This isn't adult drinking. This is drinking as a means to an end.
Yeah. Where the whole
Binge
point
drinking.
is to get as
Right.
fucked up as you can as quickly as possible.
But
God, I mean, we all did this as teenagers, didn't we?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I cannot do this anymore. I just
No.
Me personally, I don't drink any hot liquor. I just drink beer. That's it. Because I just cannot do it anymore.
Yeah.
I getting like the hangover next day when I drink hot liquor is so terrible that I really want to die. I get depressed and I feel like, I don't know, and it takes me a week to recover.
Yeah.
I'm too old for this shit.
So Ryan, I know you're not a big drinker. Have you ever have you consumed quantities of German beer before?
Sure. Yeah.
So Riley, you might be able to speak to this as well. Because I just was in Germany last summer, during Summer Breeze, I was sick. I had this weird cough, bronchitis thing that just would not go away. I still
called
just
Corona.
drank German beer all day as medicine, essentially. And I drank German beer before that, and I've had it before. I've never really had a bad hangover on German beer. And my theory was that it doesn't have a bunch of added stuff. It's by German law supposed to just be 4 ingredients, right, Ben?
Yeah, kind of. They in reality, it's a little bit more complex because the companies, the companies are allowed to add certain stuff, but they have to filter it out at the end. But I don't know. It sounds like a weird trick, and
yeah. I don't know if that was just me mentally traveling, but I drank my face off in Germany last summer, and the next day I thought I was going to be hit by a train, but I felt really good. But maybe I was just still drunk. I don't know, but I did feel much better. I did feel much better than if I had been drinking Captain and Cokes all night or something.
I mean, I really, I'm able to get really badass hangovers from German beer, though. So,
okay, well, I have to try harder next time, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I can assist you, absolutely. Let me know when you come over, and we see what we can do, man.
I'm gonna do that. So you play guitar in a band called Endseeker, which is a badass death metal band, and a lot of Americans might just not be aware yet because I'm sure it's the same in Europe. It's hard to get European fans into up and coming US metal bands, right?
It's probably harder this way than the other way around.
Yeah, and we have the challenges the other way around with European bands. And I think you might be a little bit right that European underground bands are cooler to US fans in a way than underground US bands. But Endseeker plays really brutal death metal. I'm going to put you on the spot here. I don't care. How would you pitch Endseeker to, let's say, a US fan of Cannibal Corpse?
Oh, good God.
I knew this would be a good one. I just thought of it. I apologize.
I mean, like the main difference, or it like Cannibal Corpse is like pure American death metal, and like what we do is pretty much Scandinavian death metal, and the difference is like I'd say like as Dismember and Entombed and all those bands that have like this similar signature guitar sound, this chainsaw guitar sound, the whole approach is a little bit more punky and crusty and a more sloppy way, while like stuff like Cannibal Corpse and stuff is very precise and very, very clean sounding compared to the chainsaw sound and stuff. And I think that the production is more glossy than on the Scandinavian stuff, or at least like from at least the Scandinavian stuff from that era that we're referring to, like the late 80s, early 90s stuff, the old school stuff.
Yeah, and you're talking specifically about the guitar sound.
Yeah, and I think that the guitar sound, yeah, right. And the guitar sound is like, I think the core of it when it comes to a lot of sorts of metal. Because like the chainsaw guitar sound of this Swedish death metal thing is so significant. I mean, you just recognize it out of a million guitar tones. Yeah. And while like the most of the American bands, they have like a more mid-scooped, tighter guitar sound. It's a whole different story. While like when you switch over to a new wave of British heavy metal or whatever, it's more like an open and mid-frequency exposed guitar sound and more airy, I'd say, and not so dense and compressed. I think this is stuff that you can, like, at least when you're interested in guitars or a guitar player, you can recognize straight away from the first note. That's it. You know what kind of stuff you deal with.
Yeah, now you're diving into Ryan's world of audio engineering. That I'm a drummer. I know this barely at all.
Yeah, you're just hitting shit with your sticks, man.
Yeah, hoping for the best. That's really it.
And you don't fucking care what the guitarist or whatever does.
No, that's one of the things that's fascinating about modern metal guitar to me is that you almost have to become a little bit of an electrical engineer in routing pedals and finding sounds, and it's not that simple, right? Am I totally off on that, Ryan, or somebody?
No, I mean, I think that guitar tone is really where you have the most opportunity to define your own thing. Like, a kick drum's always going to sound basically like a kick drum. Like, yeah, it could be more high end, more low end, different tunings, but it's basically going to be a drum. Similarly with bass, yeah, there's different things you can do, but it's generally going to sound like a bass guitar. But with guitar tone, there's a lot of possibilities there. And the mid-range is really where all of the stuff in music that you really identify with, it lives in the mid-range, because that's just where our ears are best at hearing, like around the range of where people are talking, like around 1 to 3K. There's a lot of information that our ears are really good at picking up. So like Ben was saying, like whether or not you have a scooped mid-range in your guitar, it completely changes the feel and the overall color of the guitar. So really that's where most bands' defining characteristics live in the mid-range of the guitar a lot, I would say.
Yeah, I remember I edited footage years ago for a Cannibal Corpse record. I think it was Torture. And Alex Webster sent me a hard drive with a bunch of raw footage. And I remember just how much raw footage there was of them trying different combinations of cabinets, heads, and pedals to find the tone for most of that record.
Yeah, especially when you're chasing a certain tone, man. It can be...
Yeah, it was Pat
crazy.
And Rob and Eric Rutan hanging around in a room with walls of amps just playing around for hours.
Yep, mic placement, heads, tubes, pickups, strings. I mean, it's a rabbit hole for sure.
I mean, like tone chasing never ends. I mean, you just you can go on with this forever. I mean, literally forever. It doesn't end. You just have to decide, okay, this is it what we're going for with this record now.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean that you don't like continue tone chasing after that. I mean, I'm constantly buying and selling gear and whatever, trying shit because but I love it, I love tone chasing. It's cool to play around with the sound and with stuff and with gear. I love gear. Send me all your gear, all the companies that endorse me with your shit. Send it over.
You're a guitar player and a video photographer guy. You and I have picked very expensive fucking hobbies.
Absolutely.
Every time I buy a new lens, I think, well, what am I doing with my life? I just spent $2,000 on a lens that's going to get like 100 Instagram likes. Who gives a shit?
That social capital, though, man.
Right.
Yeah. It's like heroin for me.
Like the filming thing wasn't really a hobby for me because I was 14 years self-employed as a video producer. So
all
the gear that I bought from the video side, I really just bought to make money with it. So it really paid off for me that it never was a hobby. But yeah, of course the music stuff. I mean, like my office, I work in a home office and my office is like a pure man cave. I'm surrounded by like 20 guitars and they're like big guitar amps standing here and like the walls are decorated with posters and like photos from our tours and stuff and passes flying around everywhere. So this is like a proper man cave and I'm surrounded by a lot of money when it comes to guitars and stuff, just it piles up over the years and I really love it. And I love to pick up different guitars every day. It's great. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, now that we're talking about man caves, what do you think, Riley, about talking some games here as we wind the podcast down?
Oh man,
we talk a lot about video games, Ben, and I don't know if you're a gamer at all.
Yeah. Well, I just play one game. And you probably start to laugh. I'm addicted to Fortnite.
That is awesome, actually. And I don't get why people trash it because it's legitimately a good game.
Have you attended any of the concerts in it?
Yeah, I've seen the first one, which was Marshmallow, I think.
Yeah.
There was a live concert, and I thought I have to see this because it's the first time that an artist plays a live show in a video game, and I think it was like, I don't know, 100 million people watching. It's insane, and I wanted to be part of that. I just wanted to see it, and it was pretty interesting. And then like a couple of weeks ago, there was this, I don't know, this R&B or rap guy or whatever that I've never heard of. But that was not a live show. There was just like sequences played in there, but that kind of sucked. So I didn't like that, but basically because the music was shit, you know. So they, like put kind of a corpse in Fortnite, and show the kids some fucking music. That would be great.
Right.
I mean,
so cattle decapitation, man.
Who was it? It was Knocked Loose. Knocked Loose did a concert inside of Minecraft recently, and then this band Left Behind released a fucking music video made entirely of clips from Animal Crossing. So, baby steps. Getting there.
The cool thing I think about Fortnite is, because I've thought about virtual concerts before, and like it makes sense. Like you have maybe you're even in VR and you're in a venue and then the band's on stage. But the cool thing that Fortnite did is they made the avatars, at least from what I saw, I think it was Travis Scott. They made the avatar like 200 feet tall, and everyone else
that was the guy. Yeah, that was the guy that I was talking about. Yeah, right,
and it's
Scott.
like, that's an awesome idea, because why not have 200-foot avatars? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, imagine if that was Cannibal Corpse and they were like smashing around this whole planet, playing their songs. And I think there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of stuff people haven't even thought of yet that can be cool in that kind of space.
Give me a goddamn
Absolutely.
Corpse Grinder World of Warcraft raid. I just want to fight him.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
Just make him 500 feet tall. Make you have to have a 24-person raid to beat him. He just windmills you off of a fucking platform. Like, oh my god, it would be so good.
Yeah, I want a Corpse Grinder Fortnite skin, and then the windmill as an emote. That would be fucking awesome. I would love that.
Sick.
Yeah, I would pay any amount of V-Bucks for it,
V-Bucks.
Just take my V-Bucks and shut up.
Yeah, Epic Games has not reached out to Metal Blade for Corpse Grinder skin. I can say that with a relatively high degree.
But we're
of
ready
certainty.
when they do.
We're ready. I mean, we're happy to. Fortnite's cool. My nephew plays a shitload of Fortnite. I have a Switch. I have a PC. I have no reason not to play it. And for me, it would just be fun to play with my nephew, because my sister's kids get tired of me beating the shit out of them at Mario Kart.
No
Mario
mercy,
Kart's
man.
great.
They're never gonna learn unless you just fucking crush them into powder.
Look, man, you either
True.
learn how to drift or get the fuck out of here. You
Yeah.
gotta learn
Right.
how to. Yeah, if you can't do that, I'm gonna keep smoking you. So it's up to you, kid approaching middle school, to figure your shit out.
I don't give
I've already done that.
fuck if there's a 30-year experience gap. You get on my fucking level. You get.
Well, I just Ben, I don't know how you feel, but I like it. I like it now as being an adult that I've been playing games since I was a kid, and kids now are really cocky, and they think,
Yeah.
"Oh no, this is an old. I'm going to get up against an old dude. This is going to be easy." It's like, no, motherfucker, let's go. Gloves off. Have you beaten the shit out of kids in video games?
Yeah, I did, because most of the Fortnite players are very young, like somewhere around the age of 12, or like maybe between 12 and 20 or something like that. And my son, he's 12, and he and all his friends, all his classmates or whatever, they play Fortnite. So, and from time to time, I play with them, and I end up in a squad with 3 12-year-old boys, and they're all like pretty big mouth, like, yeah, let's do this and let's get a win, and I'm gonna drop a 20 bomb. And yeah, no, you're not, because because maybe you're, I don't know, maybe you can build pretty good or whatever, but you have no idea about team playing, and
Right,
not
that's funny.
pushing any enemy at no matter the costs, but yeah, little more strategy and stay together and communicate. and like 12-year-old boys, they just scream and whatever, they freak out, and when they get shot, they're about to cry. It's pretty it's funny, and but what is the cool part about it is, like, from my people that I know, and from like the other parents of the classmates and whatever, I'm the only one at my age who plays this. I'm 42, and everybody else that I know in my age doesn't play Fortnite. So the kids, when we have like some school event or whatever, all the kids come up to me and want to talk about Fortnite with me, because I'm the only adult that they know who plays this game and is interested in that stuff.
Yeah, and how cool is that? Yeah, how cool is that to be able to connect with those kids, whereas the other adults act aloof and better than?
Yeah, right. And that's fun. It's great. I really enjoy this. And then oh yeah, cool. Can you add me in the game, and can we play a duo or whatever? Yeah, sure. just show up. Let's do this. Ask your parents if it's okay that you play with me, but yeah, it's fine. It's cool.
Yeah, that's it's got to be a powerful thing for a kid to be able to actually interact with an adult on that level. I remember being a kid going to an arcade playing a beat 'em up Alien versus Predator game where it was humans and predators versus aliens in kind of a Final Fight style thing with other adults, and they were really cool with me and showed me stuff that I didn't know. And that was way more formative for me as a child or preteen or whatever than an adult going, "Oh, I don't play games anymore. I just work and hate myself."
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool thing to be able to do that. And now that you can play online and it doesn't always have to be split screen on a TV, parents can really connect with their kids on another level. And that's actually pretty badass.
Yeah, I totally enjoy it. And yeah, tomorrow, like, we have a national holiday tomorrow. And so me and my son, we're going to play Fortnite tomorrow evening. We already made an appointment for that. So yeah, so tomorrow is gonna be a badass day, because during the daytime I go on a motorcycle trip with my daughter. She's 9 years old, and she loves riding motorcycle with me. And so we're doing this for the most part of the day, and in the evening I'm gonna play Fortnite with my son. So it's gonna be a fun day.
Sounds awesome.
These are just more of the media stereotypes of heavy metal people being terrible parents, terrible influences.
Yeah, like motorcycles and guns. That's it.
Yeah. That's incredible, man. That's fucking really cool to hear. And yeah, I love going back home to see my sister and her kids, and shooting. I like shooting this shit with my niece and nephew as if they're adults and not talking down to them. There's a comedian named Bill Burr, and he's talked about that before, that kids he's found like him because he's like, oh yeah, homework, school, that sucks. I went through it. And he kind of relates to him rather than like, you got to stay in school, kids, yuck, yuck, and like being this sort of character out of a tape that they would force kids to watch at school. You talk to them as a peer rather than. I think there's a lot of power in that, and when you can actually listen to them rather than talk at them, it makes a big impact on kids, I think.
Absolutely, but it's a slightly difference between like talking to your own kids or to someone else's kids, because somehow I have to keep my kids motivated to go to school, because of course they hate school because they're my kids, and so they hate school. But and I feel like a traitor, when I tell them, yeah, I know it sucks, but you have to go there, whatever, at least for that amount of time, and please try to like fit in there and do like, don't fuck up the teachers too bad, it's just gonna come back at you. And but when I think about my own childhood, I was like, I was the opposite. I was a terrible kid, I think, for the most part of the teachers. But now I'm telling my kids that it's not a good idea, and I feel like a fucking idiot, But what am I supposed to say? I cannot say, yeah, fuck school, do whatever you want, it doesn't matter. I mean, what kind of a dad would I be?
No, that's the thing. You have to be able to communicate to them that, yeah, I realize it sucks. It's not great while you have to deal with it, but it's ultimately in your best interest to do as well as you can. Get as much out of it as you can while you're there.
That's what I'm trying. Yeah.
Yeah. Look,
If
where I went to college, I could have went to the gym for free, and I didn't do that very often. And now as an adult, I have to pay to go to a gym. So there's just those things you learn as you grow older that you hope you can impart some wisdom on kids. But as people that were kids not too long ago, that we know that advice is often something you just don't heed because you're a kid. You don't know any better.
Yeah, right. And at a
It's
certain
hard.
age, they know everything.
Right.
And you're an idiot, and you're always wrong, and they're immortal and perfect, and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So yeah, we've been
It's hard.
there. We've done that. It's
Yeah.
it goes
I'm
away.
32,
It
and
just
that's
takes like
still
10
me.
years or whatever.
I'm still that age, even though I'm 32. I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
You're an idiot. I'm immortal. Don't fucking. I know everything. It's fine. No. Sometimes.
Yeah.
At least
I
you're
think-
aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about that a lot when I talk to my sister's kids of how can I talk to them in a way that they'll take this seriously, or I remember what it was like. It's a hard time to be a person at that age. Between 9 and 21 is madness.
Yeah, it's true.
Not easy for any human.
But it's really true. I think it's that pretty sums it up. It's not easy.
Yeah. Well, speaking of V-Bucks and games, Riley, one of the notes that you made on this our episode list, again, as we draw to a close here, because we're finding that our podcasts are going to be long, and we don't care. We're just going to write them out and see what happens, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
The first quarter of video game sales in the U.S. this year, Ben, I don't know if you've heard about this. It was
Nope.
the best quarter of video game sales in U.S. history. $10.86 billion in video game sales from January to March.
Yeah. It's insane. It's fucking crazy.
We're in the
It's
wrong business, boys.
Yeah, seriously. And what's crazy about it is that that's a 9% increase from last year. And I said this in slightly different wording earlier in the podcast, but 9% when you're talking in billions is like earth shattering. Like it is like 9% to equal $10.86 billion. Like that is so fucking crazy. Like in most years you'll see a 1.5% increase or something like that, and that's cause to celebrate. That's that's huge, because 1.5 of 10 billion is still an insane amount of money. So to see a 9% increase from last year, totaling up to $10.86 billion across consoles, PC, and mobile games is I think a bigger deal than people really realize outside of the game industry. It's insane. It's like I'm at a loss for words to explain how fucking crazy it is to see that kind of money being made by the video game industry in a 3-month period of time.
Well, I guess
Yeah,
it just
like-
goes to show that not every industry is suffering during this time, like Netflix or HBO or video games.
Amazon.
or
Amazon's
Yeah,
doing
but
great.
the
deliveries.
thing
Fucking
is-
right.
But the thing is, it started much earlier. So I was working for VH1 over here in, I don't know, like 1999 or 2000 or something like that. And I created a TV format that dealt with computer games. And so I was meeting up with all the publishers like Activision, Eidos, and whatever, and I had meetings with them and introduced them to our format and wanted to be part of it. I wanted them to pay for features that we made about their video games and show them on TV and make competitions for the viewers. So, and I was sitting there with, I don't know what it was, like Eidos or Activision or what is it, the publisher of Tomb Raider.
Yes,
And
I
it
know.
was
Eidos, yeah.
Yeah, and it was that year where this pretty famous Tomb Raider edition came out that got like illegally copied like millions and millions of times. I think it was the most copied game ever. And I was sitting there in their conference room, and I was, hey guys, like the music industry is suffering from the Netflix shit, not the what is it, Napster stuff and whatever. Yeah, and like now you have trouble with like the copies from Tomb Raider. How do you see it? How do you deal with it? And they were totally relaxed. And man, it's absolutely no problem because now everybody knows our game.
Yeah,
and we know how to monetize that. And I was like, I'm pretty excited to see that. And like pretty shortly after, they started to like implement mechanisms that weren't allowing the people to copy it that easily. You really had to make effort to copy this stuff. And then finally they came out with stuff like World of Warcraft or whatever that you had to play online and you had to pay. There was no workaround for that. So they were so clever and found ways to monetize their stuff. And I mean, like, take a look around. They're super wealthy and everything's fine for them. The gaming industry is crazy. And the music industry always was like steps behind.
Yeah. It's just weird.
They didn't know how to deal with this shit.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Up to this point, they didn't find a proper way to deal with this. I mean, all this Spotify stuff and whatever. Yeah, it's cool. It's great. Now people pay at least a little bit instead of downloading this shit for free. But the artist doesn't see shit from it.
Yeah, it's tough because, like, I don't know if it's so much a function of the music industry lagging behind, and I think you could definitely make an argument that it has. So much as that, for whatever reason, people don't value an album as much as a game or a movie.
Perceived value is really low.
Yeah, there's not a high perceived value of music. It's just YouTube. I would argue that as much problems as Napster caused, YouTube is probably the bigger offender because it really did take the value of an album to effectively zero. And I think that's why places like Bandcamp are so important, because it's creating a community of people that actually value art and music and feel as if the creators of that should be compensated at least somewhat. And that's kind of the hope I have, is that as vinyl becomes a viable long-term format for music enthusiasts and collectors, so does Bandcamp for people that want higher fidelity audio products and want to actually help support artists. So yeah, and music's just much more disjointed than in video games or movies. Like, a publisher like EA or Blizzard just demands a much larger audience. And Metal Blade demands a decently large audience of metal fans, but not so much that we could create our own streaming service or something to that effect. It's just much more separated. Yeah, so it's harder to have a singular service. And even gaming, too. I mean, there's Steam, GOG, the EA Origin store. There's all these different storefronts now that are causing confusion for gamers. Epic has their own store, of course, that just famously gave away GTA 5 for free.
Put everything on Steam, please.
Yeah, put everything on Steam so we have one place. But, at the same time, competition is generally speaking good. It helps.
It is.
Competition drives prices down for customers. Creates innovation. There's arguments for competition, but there's arguments against, streaming now. People were cutting the cord because over in the US, I don't know how it is in Europe as much, but cable providers were charging a lot of money for people to have channels. And largely people didn't watch most of the channels. You have a couple channels you like and the rest, who cares? But now there's so many different streaming services that you're effectively paying the same amount you were before. You're just paying it to 6 different companies.
Yep.
Right. Hulu, Netflix, Disney, whatever. So the media sphere as a whole, between games and music and video games and movies and shit, is this weird, constantly evolving world where companies want direct access to people that like their shit in the form of subscriptions and email lists. And that's where really the power is long term. The power to be able to reach people, to tell them what you're doing. And that's why Metal Blade puts such a giant importance on social media and email lists and things. Not because we're some sort of evil conglomerate that wants to take advantage of user information. For us, it's much more, hey, let's tell some metalheads that Cannibal Corpse has a new album and maybe they'll listen to it.
But you mean like we in the heavy metal world, we're like, for us, it's not as bad as for other music genres, isn't it? I mean, like most of the heavy metal fans, they still like value the physical product and stuff, and they collect stuff and they attempt shows and whatever. I mean, like for a lot of the stuff that the younger kids are listening to, like the really mainstream stuff that's in the charts and stuff, do these artists even release any albums, or do they just throw out singles and whatever? You know, I think the
but
album
that single
formats,
streams, this just the single streams so many times it doesn't matter.
Right, it's true, but I mean, like the listening experience for them is different. I mean, like for the metal fans, I think it's still the album for the most part of it. Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, we're pretty lucky in that regard. And metal bands as a whole write albums, not singles.
Right, and the fans are so lucky, dedicated, and they're loyal and whatever, and it's great. It's a great community. I mean, I experience that on every show that we play. It's great, you know, like people go out there and go into small shitty clubs or whatever to get their heads blasted off like with enormous noise, and it's great. Everybody enjoys it, and it's a great hangout. I really love it. I totally miss it, you know.
We all miss it, and we were talking about before you jumped on internet comments and how sometimes they really get under my skin. And one thing I think of often, especially when it's a bigger band, and the bigger a band, the more likely people are online to just trash it. But when you see a bigger band or a mid-level metal band, it doesn't really matter the size, but when you see a room full of metal fans losing their mind to a song, it really makes it puts all of that trivial internet nonsense into perspective, into, that really doesn't matter because there's a couple hundred people in this room right now that had a really good fucking time.
Right.
And that's ultimately what heavy metal is about.
Right.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, it comes all down to live shows.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it. This is where people really go crazy and where they get drunk and what crowd surf, stage dive, sweat all over, and like where they get in touch with the artists at the merch stand and stuff, and take photos and have a beer and nice chat. This is it. This is where the magic happens.
If you had to pick 5 bands, you want to be the first 5 bands you want to see after quarantine, Ben, who would they be and why?
The first band I would like to see is Dismember, because I haven't seen them since the reunion, but I've seen video footage from the first show, and it's fucking amazing. And like it's one of the best Swedish death metal bands ever, so I really would love to see them. Then I would love to see Machine Head on the Burn My Eyes tour.
Shit!
Yeah, but skip like the 2 hours of the other stuff. I just want to see Burn My Eyes with like the original or almost original lineup. See Logan Maida and Chris Contis on stage again, because I've seen them when they were touring the record for the first time, and it was fucking amazing. And Miss Sugar was playing support back then, and it was one of the best concerts I've ever been to. And I want to see Iron Maiden, because their fucking tour got postponed to next year, and I was so much looking forward to it, to go there. We, like all of our office, we wanted to go to the show in Berlin, and we have to do this next year, but Maiden is always worth watching. Then I want to see King's X.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
It's one of my favorite bands. It's like one of the best live bands I've ever seen. Like 3 people creating such an enormous sound, a wall of sound, and so nice dudes and whatever, great songs. Especially the Dogman record is off the fucking hook.
Doug Pinnick is a fantastic musician and human being, for sure.
It's crazy, and they have such a great tone. I love this band. And I think they're going to play here in September if it's possible to play shows then again.
Oh, wow.
Really
Cool.
looking forward to it. And last but not least, I want to see Leak, our friends from Sweden. And I'm really excited to hear some of the new songs live. And they're always fun to watch. Great bands, awesome dudes, definitely special guys. We really love them. And yeah, I would like to see them right the fuck now.
Yeah, I saw them at Summer Breeze last year as well, and it was a pretty amazing surprise and just how good they were.
Yeah, they're awesome. I've seen them
I didn't expect them to suck, but they were absolutely fantastic.
I mean, Chris, the drummer, might be the best.
Dude, he was so good. You're right. I actually, were you there when I blew him up? I was like, dude, I see a lot of drummers. I just want to let you know that was one of the best live drum performances I've seen in years.
Yeah,
and
I think he's one of the best death metal drummers out there when it comes to this kind of feel that he has. He has such an intense punch, and he's so tight, and he's so full of energy when he plays. It's a pleasure to watch him play. It's a really outstanding drummer.
Yeah. Well, hell yeah, man. Thanks for taking so much time to shoot the shit with us here. I know, just at least speaking for myself, it's nice to talk to someone outside of the house in which you live for a change, because we're all just so locked up.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It's getting late over there.
Super
We gotta
cool.
let you get to bed.
Yeah.
No, it's as I said, it's a national holiday tomorrow, and like after we quit this, I'm gonna play like Fortnite for 1 or 2 hours.
Yeah.
Before I go to bed.
All right,
Yeah, I gotta
yes.
feed my addiction. It's
All right,
terrible.
well, hey, what's the German translation for Victory Royale? What does it say on the screen when you win?
It says epischer Sieg.
All right. Well, I wish you at least one epische Sieg.
Yeah, thanks. I try my very best.
Awesome.
I really cannot compete with the 12-year-olds, though. Yeah.
No, there's some really good ones out
Follow
there. I know that
Endseeker
for
on
sure.
social media. Follow Metal Blade everywhere.
Yeah, we'll
Yes.
throw some Endseeker in the companion playlist for this episode, of course.
Awesome.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in to yet another episode of the Metal Blade podcast. Follow us online, facebook.com/Metal Blade Records, metalblade.com. You'll find us. We're not hiding. Thanks a lot, everybody.